Welcome back to the most accurate podcast here at 4 for 4 Football. As always, I'm your host, John Daigle, here for the Week 10 waiver wire preview. We are just a few weeks out from the fantasy playoffs beginning for everyone who has survived, but still a couple high ceiling stashes available to you. And as always, all of them are discussed at 44.com, where the waiver wire is available by Monday afternoon and updated through Wednesday night. As always, you can join us at 44.com for all the fun using the promo code YouTube for a 25% discount off for the rest of the season as we try to recoup those perhaps season-long losses, whether you join our DFS or betting chat. Either way, over half the season left to get in on the fun. And if you go to the site today, you will see that in the waiver wire column, it is none other than Quentin Johnston being the number one pickup among the Chargers receivers. Because with Joshua Palmer now on injured reserve and out at least the next 4 games for Los Angeles, odds are that Johnston will finally be unleashed in 2 wide sets. And what we saw most recently, as we record this just before Monday Night Football and simply cross our fingers, nothing changes, is that Justin Herbert's 5.4 yard depth of target against the Bears in Week 8, the 34th lowest ADOT among all quarterbacks to play that week, is actually good news for Johnston. Because remember, at TCU, across 3 seasons for his career, Johnston averaged a career 7.7 yards after the catch per reception. He is not a deep threat. In fact, even at 6'3", 208, that's what he was bad at doing, since he finished with the 11th fewest contested catches out of 102 receivers with at least 100 targets in the Power 5. He's bigger Brandon Ayuk and needs to be utilized underneath as such. So if the Chargers are now, with Austin Eckler back in the fold, getting the ball out of Herbert's hands quickly and utilizing Johnston underneath and over the middle of the field for crossing routes, that is how we unlock his ceiling. And that's why I'm excited for him moving forward. If you don't need a wide receiver and you're instead looking at who the number one running back pickup might be, I turn to undrafted free agent Keaton Mitchell. Because on the surface, people will look at Mitchell's box score, 9 carries, a team-high 138 rushing yards, and 1 touchdown, and that absolute drowning of the Seahawks in Week 9. But if you peek under the hood, you'll see that Keaton Mitchell actually tied Gus Edwards and Justice Hill with 4 carries each in the first half. He was used out of the gates in a running back rotation and arguably offers the most explosiveness out of their entire backfield, given his 99th percentile 4.37 40 straight line speed. He's not coming for Gus Edwards' goal line role, because unlike a running backs we see run into their center around the league when the field gets condensed, Gus Edwards has been awesome at the goal line. He's converted his 8 carries inside the 5-yard line into 6 touchdowns, and that's good enough to keep Mitchell out of that goal line touchdown equity range. But just given his explosiveness and the fact he pops on film every time you see him touch the ball, even if he's in a 30-40% timeshare with Hill and Edwards, Keaton Mitchell can get there in one of the most, if not the most, explosive offense in the league. So we should be high on Mitchell for the fantasy playoffs and moving forward for bye weeks. If you are looking for another wide receiver to plug in immediately, since we have 4 potent offenses, including the Dolphins and Eagles, on bye this week, I turn to Noah Brown, because it may have seemed like his 100 yards and a touchdown from CJ Stroud this past week came out of nowhere, but he's now eclipsed a 15% target share in 3 consecutive games since returning from injured reserve. And in his 4 starts for the Texans this year, he's actually averaged a 78% route participation starting in 3 wide sets. This week, the Texans have the Bengals, which is projected for the 2nd highest total of the week. So I have no issues locking in Noah Brown as a wide receiver floor or flex option if you are trying to pad for those buys. And if you're looking for a tight end to get through because you may have lost Dallas Goedert, I do look to Cade Otton, because Otton has run a route on over 80% of dropbacks for the Bucks in every game since week 3. They're using him as an every down tight end. The issue is that he had struggled to earn targets. But in his last 3 games now, a 14.6% target share, 15.3%, and this past week, a team high 30% target share against the Texans. We're expecting that this upcoming game between the Bucks and the Titans to shoot out, given how poor both secondaries are. But either way, now that the Bucks and Baker Mayfield are trusting Cade Otton, we should actually trust him too as a low-end tight end 1 for the rest of the season. For deep cuts today, lots of receivers and running backs. I would actually trust to pad for the bye weeks too, if you are struggling with injuries across the league, as we all are. And first up, I look to Marvin Mims, who I know we've talked about a lot on this show over the year. And with Brandon Johnson on injured reserve in the Broncos' last 2 games for their bye, Mims did actually receive a usage bump behind the scenes, running around on 44% and 42% of Denver's dropbacks in 3 wide sets. It just happened to amount to 2 targets and 1 carry for a total of negative 10 yards. Don't worry about that part, because maybe Sean Payton and the Broncos integrated Mims more into their offense over the bye week. So this is the last time we will be talking about him, barring an injury to Cortland Sutton or Jerry Jeudy, assuming that a bye may give Mims a slight bump in usage moving forward. Last week when we talked, the trade deadline was 24 hours away, and the most impactful, sadly, for receivers at the trade deadline move was Donovan Peoples-Jones getting shipped to Detroit. And the Browns came out against the Cardinals instead, not with Marquise Brown or David Bell in 3 wide sets, but with 3rd-round rookie Cedric Tillman running around on 72% of dropbacks, including 84% in the first half before the Browns just wiped the floor with Arizona. And Tillman is an interesting player. He first broke out as a 21-year-old with 64 catches, 1,000 receiving yards, and 12 touchdowns against SEC competition. And then last year, alongside Jalen Hyatt at Tennessee, started to lap those numbers with 6 catches for 83 yards and 9 catches for 162 yards and a touchdown in his first 2 games before suffering an ankle injury. Tillman, for his career, only averaged 2.9 yards after the catch per reception at 6'3", 213. He's not the kind of receiver that gets downfield and burns opposing cornerbacks. But he is the prototypical X wideout the Browns can feel comfortable leaving on an island as a possession receiver, similar to DeAndre Hopkins. And the Browns need that kind of player to earn a larger role, especially since Elijah Moore has failed to make an impact with less than 60 receiving yards in any game. If Tillman is now suddenly in 2 or 3 wide sets for Cleveland and earning that larger role, he's someone I'm comfortable picking up in deeper 14-team leagues. With Cam Akers done for the year, we can go back to leaning on our preseason analysis of Ty Chandler behind Alexander Mattison, because nothing has changed. Mattison continues underwhelming with 3.6 yard carry. He's turned his 9 carries inside the 10-yard line into, not a misspeak, -4 rushing yards, and remains the running back 33 in points per game. But Chandler is still the type of backup we want to bet on, given his 95th percentile speed, a 4.38 40 at 5'11", 204 pounds, which comps him to Jamal Charles and Tevin Coleman as an 85th percentile athlete. He's merely a contingency player right now, but as we continue shuffling the back end of our benches for players with actual ceilings, Chandler does offer the athleticism just in case he were to earn a larger role or if Mattison were injured for the fantasy playoffs. And finally, Jamar Chase came down hard on his back on Sunday night. We knew he would be dealing with pain on Monday, but the Bengals have listed him day to day. And we haven't seen a game without Jamar Chase this year. But we have seen one game without T. Higgins. And in that one in particular, it was Trent Irwin who ran around on 81% of dropbacks and earned 10 targets for a 22.2% target share behind Chase's 14 targets. If we don't think T. Higgins is going to take on that Jamar Chase role and absolutely dominating targets if Chase were injured for this upcoming week against the Texans, Trent Irwin is someone I don't mind plugging in to 12-team leagues as a flex option immediately in that salivating matchup against Houston that we just discussed earlier with a 47.5-point total. Reminder, everything, including streaming quarterbacks, if you want to hear about Will Levis and Josh Dobbs, will be ranked in the waiver wire column and updated accordingly through Wednesday night. We will also be back with our weekly preview show between myself and John Paulson Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern to get you ready for all those start-sit conundrums you may have. Until then, you know the rules. Be a little bit kinder than what's required. We'll see you next time.